Kevin, Anthony, it is an absolute pleasure to meet you both. Just to put a bit of context, I'm in a car at the moment. I'm 3 hours outside of my hometown because I'm on a camping trip,
Oh yeah,
and
which town? Which
Nice.
town?
I'm from Brisbane in Queensland, Australia.
Oh yeah, I shot
And
a movie there, and it was the funnest movie job I've ever had.
it's a
I love.
brilliant place, right? It's out
I've
here.
been everywhere in that Brisbane Gold Coast, Noosa, you name it. I've been to Nimbin, everywhere. I love
It's,
it.
it's a beautiful part of the world. But yeah, I'm on a camping trip and I had to drive half an hour outside because I'm a lifelong Saw fan. And there was no chance I was missing a chance to talk to both of you today. So I really appreciate you
All
taking the
right,
time
good.
to fit me in the schedule. And look, I got 1,000 questions as a lifelong fan, so I'm going to crack in.
Okay.
And Kevin, I'll start with you if that's okay, because obviously it's amazing to see you return to the franchise as a director. I know you've been an editor pretty much since the beginning and coming back after six and seven. So I'm really interested in finding out what was the thing that drew you back into directing Saw X, but also was there anything essential you took away from your time directing six and seven that was very essential in helping out with Saw X?
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, really, what drew me in was the script. You know, I'd heard about it back when we made Jigsaw a long time ago,
Mm,
2017 or 18. I'd heard about it and, didn't really, I think, understand what they were going for, and it didn't grab me. But then when I actually read it last year, I was hooked immediately,
mm,
and had already been thinking if we're going to do another movie, we have to really invest in the John Kramer character, and we really have to figure out how to make it understandable and inviting to general audiences. And it just did that so perfectly. There was no way I was going to walk away.
absolutely. And was there anything from your time directing Saw six and seven that you were able to bring to this experience now? Because it has been a couple of years since those films.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I learned so much working on all the other films, and learning what I liked most about it, the parts that I didn't think were as effective, and was able to really just
Mm,
hone in very well. And we shot a lot of coverage, so that I had a lot of options when I edited the film. But knowing the way to shoot the movie was definitely the result of a lot of experience in other films too, but particularly on Saw.
yeah. And Anthony, as if I am correct, this is your first venture into the Saw franchise with the production design, and I'm really interested into finding out sort of where you sit on the balance of honoring the legacy. You know, the traps are a big part of what Saw is all about, and the aesthetic of the Saw films. Balancing that and honoring that legacy, but also bringing your unique style as a production designer to that. Can you talk to us sort of a little bit what your experience with this film was like?
Yeah. Yes. I think first of all, our film takes place between Saw 1 and Saw 2. So we wanted to make sure that we were in that family as far as the way that the traps looked, all the oxidized metal and such. The other part is that, we want to be true to John Kramer, and we want to make sure that the audience feels that these are traps that he could construct and put together. The other part is that we want to say that, okay, well, we're at this factory, we're also in Mexico, so we wanted to pull from that visually and incorporate that in the traps. So you see things that are very mechanical, that are part of Saw legacy, Saw history, but also some components that are part of Mexican culture. So I think you're going to see a little bit of both. And I think that was our goal, and that's what we did. And I'm very proud of our end product.
Oh, I was the Mexican culture thing you bring in is actually there's certain trap that we won't spoil here that was very noticeable to me. I love those little things in there. A question for both of you, I guess, as well, is more so about the process of how a trap evolves. So obviously the script comes in and there's ideas on page of what that is. What are the conversations between both of you like to take that from a written word to a conceptual design to then actually having it physically there on set? How's that relationship between you two work?
Well, it of course it starts with the script, and in some of the past saws, a lot of development needed to be done after the script was written, and in some cases, like in Saw Six, the steam room, that trap just didn't exist on paper at all, and
Right.
there was some scenes, Anthony. I can't remember where it was at when you came on, but there's a scene, basically the final action sequence that was conceptually completely different than what we shot. Do you remember?
Mhm.
And so we changed
Yes,
the
I
entire
mean,
idea.
yeah, there were a couple of different things too, because when we test the traps and when we look at the logistics of working with the actors, We say, oh, that could be problematic. I don't know, for the stunt department. And so we sort of simplify things. We certainly did that with Gabriella, right? And then the end scene, which is the big trap scene. I don't want to say anything.
It's good though. It's
but,
good.
There's some stuff there, that we had to work out, and it's a matter of taste. Kevin and I have similar tastes. Same with Nick, our DP. We're all on the same page, and we say to ourselves, do we like that, or does that is that going to come across? Is the audience going to buy that? And those are decisions that we make. And sometimes it's just a little napkin drawing that gets flushed out into a concept drawing, and then we start building, constructing. We had, I can tell this is not a spoiler, but it's a little add-on. We had a trap at the beginning of this process that we ended up not using, remember? And I spent so much time on that trap. And it was, oh my God.
The shell of it is actually in the film.
Pushing for it.
Yeah, the shell is in the film. You made sure that we used it, but no one would ever.
I was like, I'm going to use this somewhere.
So it was more of a someone not being able to make it successfully than the NC-17 potential rating.
Someday I will make.
It's a long story.
Someday I'll just draw a circle on it and go.
Right.
An old trap.
That's so funny. Wow. And one of the things that's also complicates it is that there are a lot of things that happen in the same room, right? And so it was very hard to think through what we, in film we call continuity. If this happens here, then it's going to influence this, and if the lighting scheme that John Kramer has put together is like this here, it's going to influence over here. And then there were some very significant scenes that take place in the same environment that we had to shoot before we'd even done the set dressing in part of it. And so we're like, well, I think there's probably going to be some red light coming in from here, so let's just put one up and then hope that it matches when we shoot the other side of it all. So it's complicated. And of course the movie makes a big mess as it goes along, and that mess gets worse and worse. Very hard to track all that stuff.
God, I can imagine.
So I made a book. I just want to say I made a book, and it was, now I remember it. I just wrote it down. It was called The Book of Blood. And so the Book of Blood would show you where the blood was in this scene for this trap, and the blood for this, and how this was going to, and that way we're trying not to have issues with continuity, but there was just so much blood, like, that was like a big thing, and cleaning up the blood, and we figured that out, which was wonderful. And we had a blood cleaning team. So it was just great. But
how's that for the resume? Putting the blood cleaning team on your resume would be.
Yeah. Well,
they were part of my job.
That's incredible. Well, look, Kevin brought up the mess, and Anthony was talking about the mess too. And I don't want to spoil this moment, so I'll be vague about it. But I just want to gauge what your reactions were when you read in the script about the rope scene, because I saw it yesterday with another guy who's doing an interview today, and we just looked at each other and we started laughing. But it was sort of that laugh of like, oh my God, I can't believe this is actually happening. So I'd love to get what the initial reactions were when you saw the rope scene.
That's our grain.
Let me
Go ahead.
I have to just say, Kevin was already on board. And so I was sent the script, and I'm in my dining room, and this is in Colorado, and it overlooks, you can see my living room and everything. And I'm reading the script and I'm reading the scene. And I literally said out loud to the whole house, like, oh my God. That's what I said. I said, oh my God. And then I started reading more and more. And then just, I don't know, like there was a moment like maybe 5 pages later where I just stopped. And then I just got on the phone and I called the line producer that wanted to have me meet with Kevin. I was like, I'm doing this movie. I want to do this movie. I want to do this. This is insane. So I just felt like this is going to be like historically one of these scenes that people in horror, the horror community, they're all going to talk about it. And there are a lot of scenes in this film. So, and there are many surprises that weren't presented in the trailer. And we all thought, even, Kevin and I, we talk, and Nick, our DP, and we're like, was there too much in the trailer? Did we show too much? And then we're like, no, actually, there's so many surprises in this movie.
And the scene that you're talking about is a really good example of me. I can only speak about it in a roundabout way to avoid spoilers, but it's an example of how traps, like, the audience can never really guess the thought process that has to go into the movie as a whole, because that scene, as sort of small and throwaway as it is, has a huge influence on the geography of the scene. And there those four pillars that are in that scene are part of the real environment, so we couldn't just move them for convenience. And a huge amount of thinking had to go into that scene, and in my case, overthinking, because I thought it was going to be much harder to shoot it. And then when we got to that stage, we shot 2 takes, and both takes worked perfectly, and they both worked. They intercut with each other perfectly. So I guess that's the value of planning.
Perfect. Look, I really appreciate you both taking the time to talk to me today. I'm a lifelong Saw fan, so this is really awesome for me. So Kevin, Anthony, thank you so much. And I can't wait to watch this movie with a bigger audience. It's going to be so much fun.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good.
Jess, Annette, thanks. Maxine, Mark.
Please let us know.
Will do. I will do.